comparative politics, international relations, human rights, social movements, and the political economy of development in India. He earned his PhD from Jamia Millia Islamia in 2010 for his in-depth study titled The Role of the United States of America in India-Pakistan Relations, the post-World War phase. Prior to this, he completed his Master of Philosophy from the School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, where he examined post-World War India-Pakistan relations. He holds a MA in politics with specialization in international relations, also from JNU, and has qualified both in UGC JRF and UGC NET in political sciences and international relations. Dr. Sugunakara Raju has contributed significantly to the field through his publications, including the book India-Pakistan Relations and the American Factor 2010, several book chapters, and research articles in reputed journals, covering themes such as globalization and the nation-state social movements and human rights, India-Pakistan dynamics, Indo-USA relations, and regional cooperation in South Asia. A South African academic speaker, Dr. Sugunakara Raju has delivered lectures across various UGC HRDC programs on themes such as human rights, developmentalism, social movements, democracy, and development and research methodology. As a research supervisor, he has successfully guided multi-PhD scholars on workings on Indo-Pak relations, Afghanistan-Pakistan stability, Indo-USA engagements, and other contemporary geopolitical themes. Several more doctoral candidates are presently pursuing research under his supervision, covering topics ranging from India's energy security to political economy, labor rights, and party politics. Dr. S.R.T.P. Sugunakara Raju contributes meaningfully to research, scholarship, and academic leadership, enriching the fields of political science through his balanced engagement with international relations, developmental studies, and contemporary political issues. So, with great respect, join your hands to welcome Dr. Sugunakara Raju sir onto the dais.
Thank you, Bhavani, for introducing me. I'm thankful to the VIT University for giving me this opportunity to speak to the students, faculty of law, especially the Dean of Faculty of Law, Dr. Banerjee. Uh, uh, as we celebrate this Constitution Day, I would like to speak on certain political ideas that the Constitution embodies. And I would like to engage with the law students in particular, because there are so many concepts, ideas that these two subjects, the law and political science, deal with. The relationship between these two subjects is very close, because where the political differences end, the law begins. So if there is agreement or consensus or majority, in a particular legislature, then you have a law, right? And then whether that law is, living up to the expectations of the, political executive or legislature, then you have the relationship between. So that is why the concepts like basic structure theory, the basic structure doctrine in the Indian Constitution, and also the friction or the tension between legislature on the one hand and the judiciary on the other hand, in terms of who has the upper hand, or in terms of whether it is the legislature who will have should have the final say, or the judiciary. So let me explain these concepts in terms of the political ideas and the political philosophy that Indian Constitution embodies, right? So in the morning, the speakers, especially Professor Dr. Ajay, has pointed out that liberal democracy is in crisis everywhere. That is true. So India is world's largest functioning democracy. It is the world's largest functioning democracy. And democracy is not the patent of any one particular country. Anybody can have it. In fact, most of the countries today in the international system, out of the 193 members of the United Nations, most of them have democracy as a political system, or most of them are trying to move towards democracy wherever there is authoritarianism. So therefore, these two ideas, democracy and authoritarianism, are very, very important. And we have to see whether I want to examine this question whether authoritarianism can coexist with democracy also. In contemporary democracies, we find certain authoritarian trends also. So, why it happens? This will be one of my aspects of my focus. So, what is the what kind of political principles that Indian Constitution upholds? First of all, the basic we have the preamble, right, where we, the people of India, adopt certain political principles and values, and we document them in a book, and these are our goals, our ideals, through the realization of which we are moving towards. We are trying to move towards these values. Now, the basic question is, yes, we have high ideals like freedom, equality, justice, fraternity, brotherhood, and nowadays sisterhood also. Right? But all these ideals are there in the book. But do we have these ideals being realized? Do we have social conditions or political conditions in our real life where we can realize these values? That is where we have to have a kind of bit critical thinking, right? So for students of social sciences, critical thinking is very, very important. So critical thinking, it started from, say, the Enlightenment era in the European history, in European history. So reason, rationalism, being logical, or these are all the ingredients of. So you always raise questions, right? Instead of following simply conformism. Conformism means what is being told to you, what is being taught to you, you just simply follow that. You don't apply your mind, application of your own mind to the concepts and relate them, whether these ideas are there actually in our in real life. For example, we talk about equality, or we talk about civic culture. Civic culture. So civic culture is one of the important concepts that liberal democracy has developed. So what is the civic culture? That every citizen has to, think of himself and other citizens as fellow equal rights-bearing citizens. That is to say, that I have to think about the other person as a person who has the same rights as I have. So if I have this idea in my mind, then I know what are my rights and what I should not do in order to protect his rights or her rights. Right. So this is known as the principle of equal liberty. The principle of equal liberty. So anyway, so the ideals here are that are enshrined in the constitution are liberty. Sometimes we use the word liberty or we use the word freedom, right? Liberty or freedom, equality, justice, fraternity or brotherhood, or we can also include the concept of nationalism. And I will talk about different types of nationalism, what kinds of nationalism we have. And the ideas of constitutionalism, the theory, political theory of constitutionalism. The basic idea behind constitutionalism, or what is the purpose of constitutionalism, or what is the need for having these ideas codified into a document and saying that these ideas or these ideas should govern our laws that we make or our behavior or kind of conduct, right? So what is the logic behind it? The main purpose of having constitutionalism or having what we call supremacy of the constitution, even Supreme Court also has said in its basic structure doctrine, one of the elements of this basic structure of the constitution is supremacy of the constitution. But this is true of any democracy, not just India, but any democracy can have such kind of supreme constitution, which is supreme. Now, what is the idea behind having such a constitutional supremacy or constitutionalism? The basic purpose is to ensure that state never becomes absolute in the exercise of its authority, and we always have what is known as limited government. In a democratic framework, especially in a liberal democratic framework, when we talk about government, the basic concept is limited government. That is to say, if a particular political party or a coalition of parties comes into power, it doesn't mean that they can do whatever they want to do. Even the government is duly constituted by law, and government has to exercise its authority or powers as laid down in the constitution. So therefore, the constitution is a supreme document. It is not only for the citizens, even for governments, right? They have to, follow the legal code of conduct, or they have to work towards achieving certain ideals, right? So therefore, the basic purpose of constitution is limiting the absolute power of the state or government and ensure that state doesn't encroach upon the rights and freedoms of the individual. This is the general liberal idea, the general idea of constitutionalism as it developed in the Western context. But in new democracies like India or in the developing countries, we have challenges. Because, for example, some American political scientists like S.M. Lipset, those who are from faculty of social sciences, those who are doing sociology, they know that S.M. Lipset, one American sociologist, he came up with what he called certain social requisites of democracy. What are these social requisites of democracy? That is to say, if you want to have a flourishing democracy, a flourishing democratic system, you have to have certain basic social conditions in the society. Just as Ambedkar has pointed out in his speech to the Constituent Assembly just before inaugurating the Constitution, that from today we are entering a life of contradictions. So contradictions, that is modern democracy. Anyway, modern democracy, in contrast to the earlier pre-democratic, feudal systems, is based on the idea of equality. What kind of equality? Political equality and civic equality. All of us are citizens and we have equal civil rights, equal political rights. You can ask me this question: why is it important why having civil equality is important and why having political equality is important. Anyway, it is at the end of the day, it is the political elites who wield power. Right? Then you can ask this question. No, it is important. Civil equality is important. Political equality is important. Civil equality is important because before the rise of the modern society, modern government, based on the idea of rationality. You must have studied about Max Weber, so again sociologist. He talked about three types of authority in societies. Traditional authority, charismatic authority, and legal rational authority. And you are dealing with this third legal rational authority. So, if I can just explain these three terms, what is legal, what is traditional authority? So, this is a kind of authority or government, you can say political authority, which draws its power from traditions, tradition and culture. And then there is another authority called charismatic authority. So the charismatic authority draws his or her power from the kind of charisma that a particular political personality has. So what is this charisma? This is a kind of social psychological thing that there are certain leaders who are very popular, who are very eloquent in speaking, and if they speak, they attract so many people, and they inspire many people. This is the kind of personality. It's just like in politics, you have certain leaders. So this is the charismatic authority. Then there is legal rational authority. No, authority is not based on either tradition or charisma. Because tradition can be undemocratic. Charisma can be sometimes misleading. Leaders may be popular, but they may be misleading the people. So therefore, authority has to be legal and it has to be rational. So when you build your legal arguments, how do you make a legal case for a particular argument? Based on the concept of rationality. And you put together all kinds of arguments based on a particular rationality and logic, right? Now, but this idea of rationality, is increasingly being questioned nowadays. And the ideas of modern, the ideals and the principles of modernity itself is under question now. With the rise of postmodernism as a kind of philosophy, postmodern philosophy, from 1960s, 1970s, especially the ideas of Michel Foucault, right? This trend in social sciences is known as postmodernism or post-structuralism, right? So, what is this postmodernism or post-structuralism? The modern ideas, including the ideas of those ideas that are enshrined in the Indian Constitution based on liberal democracy, right? These ideas are they question there is no such thing as rationality. There is no absolute truth, right? Truth is kind of relative. So if I explain this whole thing in terms of rights discourse or human rights discourse, we have a theoretical debate called universalism versus cultural relativism. Universalism versus cultural relativism. So, universal principles are applicable everywhere to every society, irrespective of its culture. But cultural relativism says that no, say rights or any modern political principles or social principles have to be they're culturally related. So whatever is true in a particular society may not be true in another society, right? So, but then this postmodernism, I find it personally problematic because it relativizes things. It says that there is no truth, and there is what is known as value for pluralism, and uh, there are no one single absolute value, but there are different values. So anyway, what is the what is the what is the crisis of liberal democracy, and what is the evidence to say that liberal democracy is in crisis? You have nowadays. Earlier, we used to believe in ideas like international peace, international cooperation, cosmopolitanism, cosmopolitanism, and other things. For example, those Indians who went to the United States, who migrated to the US, say in 1950s and 1960s, they did not face much of opposition, and they went there in search of better chances or better opportunities in life, and they are well settled, and their next generation has also come up now. But nowadays, if some of you, after doing your studies, if you want to go to say US for better opportunities, better chances of life, it is not easy for you to move to either UK or US or Canada. Why? Because there is lot of opposition against immigrants, fear of immigrants. They say that these immigrants are coming in and they are taking away our jobs. Right? For example, you take the international IT, information technology, IT field. Most of the Indians, those do well in IT field or and such other cutting edge technologies, they are now considered as the potential threats to the American people or American workers. So you guys are coming from Asia, you guys are coming from India, and you are taking away our opportunities. So therefore, our livelihoods, our jobs are at stake. So therefore, you are not welcome here. And these migrants, they go there not only in a legal way but also in a kind of illegal. They say that we are not going to allow these illegal immigrants into our country because our people are losing our. So therefore, what I'm saying is, in the contemporary world, in most of the democracies, there is a rising trend of nationalism. Earlier, we talked about globalization, internationalization, free movement of people and free movement of ideas across the nations. But now, all the countries are increasingly becoming insecure, more nationalistic. So therefore, and this is against the spirit of democracy and internationalism, democratic internationalism, or what liberals call liberal internationalism, the idea of liberal internationalism. It doesn't mean that in liberal democracy there is no place for nationalism. Yes, there is the idea of nationalism is there, but then they believe that nationalism is a passing phase, and it will ultimately give way to international. So that is to say, where uh, uh, where people can move easily from one country to another country, right? In search of jobs, in search of better opportunities, better chances. But nowadays, what happens is the businesses or the capital can freely move across the countries, but workers cannot move from one country to another country. Are you getting my point? If you are a business person, you can start a business in another country, or you can even wind up your business if you think it is not doing well. But for workers, there is no such mobility. They are not easily welcome in other countries. For example, one businessman comes to India and invests in Indian stock market, and he thinks after a week or so, Indian stock market is not doing well. Chinese market is doing well, so therefore I will shift my investment to China. He can shift it. He has the technology, he has the means to shift it. But a worker who is working in India can easily move to another country. So, in the name of globalization, there was free movement of capital, free movement of businesses, but there has been no free movement of workers and opportunities for the workers. So this kind of nationalism is also and what kind of nationalism is rising nowadays? It is mostly what you call based on kind of ethnicity, ethnic nationalism, cultural nationalism, etc. etc. Right? So this because of this, you have such kind of problems coming up in democratic countries. But on the other hand, you see a country like China, because the idea of democracy, liberal democracy, that which inspired our framers of the constitution, it has a kind of moral strength. Democracy has moral strength. So India, let me explain with the help of a simple example. India's GDP is around 3 to 3.5 trillion dollars, but China's GDP is close to 20 trillion dollars. But India and China started their independent political journey same time in 1940s. So they had the Chinese Revolution in 1949. We became independent in 1947. So over a period of say 70 years or so, their GDP has gone up to $20 trillion, and our GDP is still for 3.5 to 4 trillion dollars. Our immediate goal is now to make it to $5 trillion. Now, is wealth creation is the ultimate goal? No, I am not saying that. But if you have certain objective criteria to measure societies, to compare societies, who is doing how? For example, United States of India has taken say around 200 years, close to 200 years, to reach a GDP of $25 trillion. Right? So therefore, what is it that is fundamentally different in say in India and China? Then you can say, no, China is a communist country. They don't have democracy. They don't have different political parties. They have only one political party, which contests the election and which wins the elections. Right? So now, how can you compare China with India? Can we compare it? Is it a reasonable comparison? No, it is not. No, it is not. So why? Because we think that democracy has that moral force. Because in democracy you have the basic idea of freedom. Anybody can raise his voice. Anybody can protest. Anybody can criticize the government. Anybody can criticize the government policy. So therefore, that is the moral strength of liberal democracy. But then, for a liberal democracy to be successful, you need certain conditions. In the Western countries, for example, they have high levels of wealth. Like I said, US GDP is $25 trillion. And most of us would ideally like to go to US because we have better chances in North America, whether it's US, Canada, or UK. Because so therefore, what were the social requisites that sociologist was talking about? That if your democracy has to be successful, there has to be some kind of social equality in the society, and there has to be some material equality. There has to be literacy. There has to be education, right? Why, for example, you think we made right to education an entitlement, right? Only in 2000, when was this right to education was enacted? Right to Education Act. Right to education as a fundamental right. Right? So why could we not make right to education a fundamental right in say 1950 itself? Could we have done that in 19 other? If we have made this right to education in 1950 itself, so by now, you know, 4 or 5 generations have passed. By now, there would have been no illiterate person in this country. Like, for example, Taiwan in 1950 introduced basic education of at least 7 years or 9 years. Taiwan is a democracy, though it is within the part of larger Chinese system, but it is a democracy. Then you can make a comparison. I'm sure you would agree that we can compare India with China, with Taiwan, because Taiwan is a democracy. But Taiwan has, uh, spent so much money on human resources, on education, on healthcare. Even today, we don't have right to health as a fundamental as an entitlement, as a legal right. The way we have right to education up to primary education. It is not the higher education. Right to education is basically up to the age of 14 years. Whatever the education, primary and middle classes, one can access. But that. So therefore, if democracy has to be successful, there has to be some there have to be certain social conditions, social structure, social equality in the in the society. If your political, then only your political equality makes sense. So there is no point giving political equality, civil equality to the people with a society which is hierarchical, which has a lot of injustices, which has a lot of inequality. This was the point that Dr. Ambedkar, B.R. Ambedkar was making, that we are entering into a life of contradictions. So what is this contradiction? You have political equality, you have civil equality, you have, so that is to say equality and a non-discrimination. Equality and non-discrimination are the fundamental principles of liberal democracy. But then, these are only political and civil principles. If your society doesn't support that political structure that you are raising, so it's like the social structure is like the foundation, basic foundation on which you have the political structure of democracy. So that democracy can be successful where people can realize these values of freedom, liberty, equality, justice, and all that. Only if you have some kind of social equality in terms of society, social structure. Now, so therefore, liberal democracy can be contrasted with what is known as social democracy. Social democracy, basically. Social democracy. So what is social democracy? Social democracy is like where the state is spending, considerable amounts of its budget on the welfare of the people, on the welfare of the people. If you go to any Western country, they have a very strong system of social safety net, social security, that is insurance, healthcare, etc., etc. These are the things. But of late, such kind of welfare state theory also has come into crisis. You must have observed recently, US government has been shut for 40 days. Have you read about it in the newspapers? US government has been shut. Is it some company like they just lock workers lock out and they shut the company or shut the business? It is a sovereign government, but this government is shut for 40 days. Why? Why is it the case? Because there were disagreements between Republicans and Democrats over the approval of the welfare budget on healthcare and other welfare related matters. There was Republicans were saying no, we will cut down on healthcare and all that. Democrats were asking for more welfare. So because of this tussle, what we call tussle in the U.S. Congress, government has to be closed for close to 40 days. This is the biggest shutdowns in American history, it seems. Government has it. And this has had its lot of impact on so many Americans who cannot afford, many services. See, we know one rosy picture about the US, for example. US as a place like liberal democracy. Political scientists also say that it is the form of model kind of democracy which the developing countries can actually emulate, which they can follow. But why is it such things are happening in the US, which is supposed to be the mother of the modern democracy. Now let me a bit focus on other kinds of values that our Indian Constitution talks about, and the upholding of such values, right? Not only political civil values, but also such kind of social equality is important. Otherwise, what we have seen recently in Sri Lanka, in Bangladesh, in Nepal, right? What is happening in so many these in our own South Asian neighborhood? But this we have seen in Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, countries like Sudan, you have civil wars and all that. But even in our own neighborhood, right, we have political systems collapse. So we have to be careful in protecting our democracy and the kind of freedoms and liberties, rights that our constitution makers have provided to us. So we have to ask certain critical questions. All these countries also had such constitutions, such systems, but their systems have collapsed. People almost it's like a revolts, the rebellion kind of thing. So that is where we have to examine not just the political and legal aspects of these values, but also the underlying social structure or social systems. Now, if you look at if you look at these values, discuss these values, but before that, let me uh, focus on one thing, which is various political perspectives on Indian constitution. So you are a legal law students. You know the legal concepts, etc., etc. But then for political scientists, we are concerned about what is the kind of politics behind a legal text, a legal document, or what is the kind of political theory is there behind a legal document, right? Uh, for example, there can be a liberal individualist perspective. What is the liberal individualism? Liberal individualism is a political philosophy, social philosophy, economic philosophy. It says that individual and individual initiative, individual dignity is important. and state has always has to protect this individual autonomy and individual freedom, right? And state should never encroach upon these freedoms. So therefore, there was this concept of minimal state, minimal state. So therefore, today also we have in the name of neoliberalism, what we have is a kind of minimal state where state intervention is supposed to be lesser and lesser, and freedom is given to the individuals and the market. That is the idea. Now, uh, there is another political perspective from which you can see the constitution, especially in a country like India. In advanced Western countries, because they have high levels of economic growth, high levels of wealth, high levels of prosperity, so therefore individualism can be sustained there. But here in developing countries, these countries are organized not on individual basis, but on the basis of the communities and different groups. So therefore, communities and group rights, these are the important things. Indian Constitution tries to make a balance between individual rights on the one hand and the communitarian, goals or group rights on the other. So it has given certain constitutional protections to certain groups of the people, right? Uh, whether it is scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and even now the other backward classes and other groups, right? They have been given certain constitutional protections. Similarly, if you look at it from a religious point of view, religious communities point of view, cultural diversity point of view, also you have for example, liberal individualist principles and laws, and also communitarian principles. For example, in India we have civil law coexisting with the personal laws of different communities, right? For example, think about a marriage between an interfaith couple, a Hindu and Muslim boy. Let us say Hindu girl and Muslim boy want to have marriage, get into a marriage relationship. Now they can be if Hindus have a separate personal law and Muslims have personal law, right? Then how do we do it? Uniform civil code is there, but we have not implemented it. It is there in the directive principles. So then you have got what is known as a Special Marriage Act. Special Marriage Act. So why I am giving this example? In this Special Marriage Act, here both the idea is that individual consent is more important than the culture and tradition. So for example, in Hinduism, you can enter into marriage, but there was no system of exiting from marriage, because marriage is not a contract in Hinduism, right? From where you can come back. So this was there were some of the differences, for example, on Hindu courts bill between Ambedkar and others, right? So what is the point of having Special Marriage Act? Is that if you want not to be treated as a Hindu or a Muslim, you can be treated as a citizen. Both boy and girl can be treated as a citizen, as equal rights bearing partners, and they want to enter into a marital relationship, and they can exit from that at any point of time of their choice, mutual thing. So what is this? You have the group rights on the one hand, you have individual rights on the other. This is what Indian Constitution has tried to strike a balance into that, right? Similarly, You can look at the constitution from a socialist perspective, socialist and Marxist perspective. Marxists straight away say that Indian constitution or Indian state is a compromise between the landlords and the big capitalists, right? So if you set aside this view and take up the socialist content, let us take up fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. Now, and this is where we are entering into the realm of rights, right? Now, the kind of rights that are there in democracy, there are nowadays we talk about human rights, right? Human rights, the simple definition is by virtue of being a human being, that every person has got certain basic and inalienable rights, which cannot be violated under any circumstance. So this is the idea of human rights, right? Now, but there are civil political rights on the one hand, social economic rights on the other hand. And liberal democracies everywhere in the world, they give preference to civil and political rights. Not just in India, everywhere. For example, if you look at international documents, there is this International Bill of Human Rights, and you have International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and International Covenant on Social, Economic and Cultural Rights, right? What are these rights? The basic civil rights like freedom, equality, freedom of speech, expression, right, movement, these things. And political rights, right to vote, right to contest, right to hold public office, right to criticize, right to have your own political opinion, right? So these are civil and political rights. But modern society has given you all these rights. But on the other hand, socialist countries, they emphasize more on social and economic rights. For example, in the former Soviet Union, they had right to work. After the Russian Revolution, they came up with a declaration in which right to work was upholded. We have in India also we have right to. Do we have right to work in India today? Do we have right to work? Do we have right to work in India today? Some of us have for 100 days. I am giving you a clue. Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program, which means what? Any person in the rural areas, if he has no livelihood, right, he can access employment by provided by the state for a period of 100 days in a year. So, why is it important? If you say that right to life is one of the fundamental rights, and that person has not got a livelihood, right? He is not able to secure his livelihood. So then he has what are the options that he has? Either he can do some crime and get his money or means whatever, or he can die. He can kill himself, suicide. Is it? And these are the two options open to the individual. So the logic of social and economic rights is, in order to be able to enjoy civil and political rights in a fullest form, you should have certain social and economic rights. But unfortunately, we have social and economic rights in India in the form of directive principles of state policy in a section of the Indian Constitution, which is not legally enforceable. Fundamental rights are enforceable, in which you have certain civil rights, you have certain political rights, you have certain even cultural rights also given to some cultural groups, right to freedom of religion, freedom, etc. given to the minority groups, right? So, so therefore, the idea of civil and in democracies across the world, they prefer civil and political rights over social and economic rights. This is one. Secondly, in the basic structure doctrine, Supreme Court has laid down certain features of the basic structure of the Indian Constitution, which also include welfare state. Welfare state. So, government providing welfare to the people. But then, from 1980s onwards, if you look at the beginning of Reaganism, Thatcherism in the UK and United States, Thatcherism in UK and Reaganism in United States, we have been increasingly moving towards what is known as a free market economy. And state is increasingly becoming, state's intervention is being increasingly cut down. State's welfare budget is being cut down, right? So this thing, what happens is, in the constitution you have an ideal like welfare state, but here in practice actually the state is actually becoming a minimal state, lesser and lesser state intervention. What is the dictum today for governance? Minimum government and maximum governance. Minimum government and maximum governance. This is the slogan of contemporary governance in India. So you have a small government in the sense not only in terms of its size but also in terms of its budget on welfare. Government can spend on infrastructure, highways, etc. etc. You have big highways, expressways, etc. coming up, but the issue of opportunities, livelihoods, employment, we have certain problems there, right? Similarly, there is also this. If you look at look at the debate between secularism and socialism, right? There was a petition in the Supreme Court, that to strike down these two words from the preamble of the Constitution, secular and socialist, because there is no need for this, because we are no longer following any kind of socialism, and also the word secularism was not there originally in the original constitution. It was inserted by the 42nd Amendment in 1976. So therefore, let's delete these two words from the preamble. But the idea is, but ultimately I think court has agreed that we have to retain this, though we don't have socialism in a sense of in a Chinese socialism or some communist system, but our meaning of socialism is different, so we are going to have it. Now, what about secularism? Secularism also, as far as secularism is concerned, secularism, if you look at how the idea in the sense of separation of religion from politics, secularism in the sense of separation of religion from politics, secularism has been a basic ingredient of modern democracy, modern state, modern government, in terms of in terms of the basic constitutional framework. Whether you have this word explicitly in constitution, secular, the word secular or not, modern democracy includes this basic idea of secularism, because the whole the idea of popular sovereignty, people's sovereignty, is based on the idea of nationalism, and this nationalism is a civic nationalism. Civic nationalism means what? that we are all citizens of a country, and we are also equal members of a nation, and this is irrespective of our differences, caste differences, community differences, religious differences, whatever. So this idea of civic nationalism is based on this idea of citizenship, free and equal citizens of of these people. They constitute one political community. So therefore, nation is a politically organized community of equal rights bearing citizens. This is the idea of civic nationalism. But increasingly, this idea has been under threat or challenge. It is being challenged now. Not just in India, everywhere. You have some kind of nationalism rising in US. You have such kind of nationalism rising in Europe, in many countries. We thought British were the most cosmopolitan people, but they exited from European Union. Brexit, we call it Brexit. They were the people who gave these ideas of internationalism, democracy, internationalism, inclusion, cosmopolitanism, regional organizations, international organizations. The idea of, from Hugo Grotius to Immanuel Kant, the idea of international organization, international community, and all that. But such a kind of people, Britishers, now suddenly they become so insecure that they are exiting from European Union. So what is the problem? I'm saying this parliamentary, England is supposed to be the mother of parliamentarism, isn't it? Where we have taken. They made the laws up to 1935 Government of India Act. It is the Britishers who made all these acts. They are supposed to be so cosmopolitan, but they are so insecure now. But this is only not just case of Britishers, but this problem is there in most of the countries, and the rising trend of nationalism is posing challenges to democracy. So this is true in many cases, and the whole idea of multiculturalism and diversity, multiculturalism and diversity. So there is a difference. Diversity is what? Diversity is liberalism. They say that yes, there can be different communities and they can follow their culture, tradition, festival in their private life. But when it comes to the public life, we are all citizens. So therefore, you should not bring religion into the public domain. That is the basic idea of diversity. But multiculturalism, the idea. So after so many migrants from Asian countries like India, China, and other countries, they went into the US and North America, UK. Then these guys went there in search of work, but they actually when they land up there, they find themselves in a culturally alien land. Right? So if a Hindu wants to go to a temple or a Muslim wants to go to a masjid, you don't find them in a Christian world. So therefore, then they said, no, the religious, the cultural aspects of the immigrants have to be their practices, their norms, their customs and traditions have to be protected. So therefore, we have to recognize this difference. So this thing has come to be known as the politics of recognition. The politics of recognition. And this thing is otherwise known as the idea of multiculturalism also. But our frameworks have already incorporated this kind of idea of multiculturalism long back. Whatever that Europeans or North Americans were trying to develop in the name of multicultural society, this we have had from 1950s because of our own society and its kind of challenges that we face, the kind of divisions we face, the kind of problems that we have. In the light of these experiences, we have built up a system where multiculturalism has been laid down in a way where you have civil law coexisting with the personal laws. So Indian Constitution is such a document where you have uh, liberal individualist rights as well as the community rights. Uh, Justice, the idea of justice is important. You guys deal with mostly the idea of legal conception of justice, but we also deal with what is known as social justice as a concept. And I will just talk about Rawls in John Rawls, who was a philosopher, American philosopher, who came up with this book, with his famous book, A Theory of Justice in 1971. Right? So he says justice as fairness. And he comes up with two different principles of equal liberty or equal liberty principle and the difference principle. He says that social and economic inequalities have to be arranged in a way that even the least advantaged or the most disadvantaged section also feel happy about in such a society. That is, in other words, what Rawls has laid down is that uh, inequalities inequalities may be there because these inequalities come from different endowments or a different this principle is otherwise known as meritocracy, the idea of meritocracy. So what is meritocracy? If you have talent, though and talented people will be welcome and all the positions will be filled up on the basis of the idea of merit, right? This is meritocracy. But then you think of a society where in a liberal democracy, where if you look at the relationship between the winners and the losers, and especially when the number of losers is very high. So if you look at the entire society and find out that there are so many losers in this society, then then what is to be blamed? Is it their individual merit or lack of merit, or there are certain social conditions which are not helping them to realize their individual potential? They have potential, but they cannot realize it. So that is where the question of social justice comes up. So that is why modern society has promised not only promised to operate on the basis of meritocracy, but it is also promised the idea of social justice. So social justice is a very sweeping idea. It wants to provide opportunities, livelihoods, basic means that nobody should go without bread and butter. That is the basic idea. How much more time I have? I can take 10 minutes or so or more, 10, 15 minutes or only 5 minutes. Okay. Let me talk use these 5 minutes for talking about gender equality. One of the limitations of Indian Constitution is that it has not sufficiently addressed the idea of gender equality. Right? This has been one of the limitations of the Indian Constitution. But now, in recent times, in the entire world, there has been a lot of assertion in terms of the feminism, feminist rights, women's rights, and right feminism. So feminism comes up in two different versions. In fact, three of them. But basically, liberal feminism and radical feminism. These two are important strands within the feminist thought. So liberal feminism says that there should be gender equality, male female equality in terms of the education, public employment, etc., etc. That is in the public sphere. So there should be equality, gender equality in the public sphere. But from 1960s onwards, you have the emergence of another trend, which is the emergence of radical feminism. So radical feminism has focused on what is known as the main slogan is personal is also political. Personal is also political. Personal is also political. So they say, what is personal is also political? Liberal feminists thought that, if you can provide equality, gender equality in the public sphere, that will take care of the women's rights. But radical feminists started pointing out that in the private sphere, what is private sphere? In the family, interpersonal relations, civil society, cultural values, cultural norms. These are all these things come under the private sphere. Well, there is actually more oppression against women in the private sphere, in the family, in the interpersonal relations. Preference for male child compared to the female child, right? Preference for brother compared to sister, like this. And they have also pointed out that you even great declarations like the French Declaration of Rights of Citizen and man and citizen, they talked about the rights of man, but they never talked about rights of women. So Mary Wollstonecraft, British feminist, liberal feminist in 19th century, she came up with a book, a vindication of rights of women. So she pointed out that the French Declaration, which talked about liberty, equality, fraternity, it talked about rights, it talked of man, but it never talked about the rights of the women. So therefore, that is actually the beginning of the liberal feminism. But now, from 1960s onwards, especially the urban, urban and suburban women, the kind of domestic work that they do, unpaid domestic work that they do, and there is no regulation of the domestic work also. It is not only unpaid, but it is also not regulated, because mother has no limit on her working hours. We have office working hours for 8 hours, and if you work more than 8 hours, you will get paid overtime, isn't it? But does mother get paid after 8 hours of work? No. So therefore, the domestic work is so much frustrating, especially in an urban context where there is no help from the community, because in a society of atomized individuals, so it has become a very frustrating kind of experience for women. So in that kind of urban setting, the idea of radical feminism came up, and they started questioning the women's oppression in the private sphere. Now, it is not only this, gender and sex, these two things. They said, gender is totally constructed, but sex is biological. But now, even this thing has also been questioned. Sex there can be third sex also. Liberals talk about personhood. Personhood means it can be a male or a female, or even a third sex person. Now, for example, the LGBT community rights. You see the whole debate on the LGBT community or the third sex, right? So this kind of gender, the politicization of sex and gender has been so immense that it has brought these ideas where the ideas of even third sex has been recognized, and the rights of the LGBT community people have also to be recognized. I think I'll stop here. Thank you very much. If you have any questions or comments or anything that you want to say about what I have spoken, you are welcome. Any questions or any comment, anything that you want to say? Students, you don't have any questions?
When you talked about the different feminism and the radical one,
Yeah.
we're speaking on the concept Indian culture.
It is global context, but it applies to Indian context also. Radical feminism basically developed in the context of US and UK in an urban kind of framework. But these ideas are now, spreading to other countries also. So basically, radical feminists are focusing more on the private sphere, the family, the gender oppression in a private context, male-female relations. Why you have preference for a male child, not a female child? Why you have preference for brother, not sister? Why father is more important than mother? Like this. Such questions I have come. And they said, whatever liberal feminists, have not touched upon, because liberal feminists were focused more on gender inequality in the public sphere. So women do not have access to education, give them equal access. Women do not have equal representation in politics, give them representation. Women do not have equal representation in society, businesses, or different management boards, etc., etc. That is the idea. So therefore, now liberal feminists always look towards the government and state and its policy in order to reform and ensure gender equality. Whereas radical feminists want to try to work within the sphere of civil society. So there are so many companies, so many multinationals. Indian companies are also coming up. Many people are coming up with startups and all that thing, innovation, etc. etc. But how many women are there among those innovators? What is their representation in businesses? What is their representation in the businesses or technology field? That is the idea.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other question or comment? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable words. Now I invite Dr. Banerjee Chakkar sir to facilitate our session guest, Dr. S.R.T.P. Sugunakara sir. Honorable Chief Guest, respected Dr. S.R.T.P. Sugunakara sir, esteemed dignitaries, distinguished faculty members, and dear students. It is my proud privilege to extend a heartfelt vote of thanks on behalf of all of us present here. We are truly honored to have with us Dr. Sugunakara as a distinguished scholar and an inspiring academician from the Department of Political Science, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. Sir, your insightful contribution to the disclosure today has enlightened us immensely. Your profound understanding of international relations, political economy, human rights, and South Asian geopolitics, your dedication to research, particularly on India-Pakistan relations and Indo-US relations, engagements, and development politics. We are grateful for your presence and for the knowledge you have shared with us today. Once again, we express our deep gratitude to you, sir, for gracing this occasion with your valuable time and inspiring address. Thank you all. I request Dr. Banerjee Checker sir to facilitate our session guest, Dr. C.H.P. Raman sir.
Good afternoon, all of you. You are sleeping minions. Wake up. Stand up, all of you once. Yes, all these faculty members, those who have been speaking, they have the urge to control, but they don't want to control because of ideological reason. But I don't have that ideological lenience. Okay? And behave yourself when we have the guests. I could continuously see that people are murmuring. That's why I call you as the minions. In the age of digitization, instead of recognizing you as the humans, we call you as a. That means you are losing your identity. Don't do that. Sit down. Thank you very much. And now it is a great privilege to conclude the session. In fact, we need to have one more session, but that speaker is engaged with the government of India, some project which we initiated in the northeast of India, that is in 7 northeastern states, that is the access to healthcare. Some government team was visiting, which we started way back in 2014 with the help of the special funds given by the central government. Today they have continued the project, and Northeast is the place where they have the crisis for the access to the health, and he is supposed to speak on that. But today, since he is very busy, he is not able to join. That is what we will do. We will conclude this session with a little bit of a wrap up, and also felicitating our guest, Mr. C.H.V. Raman, who is the founder of the Ishwar Law Firm and who is the youngest son of our today's morning endowment lecture given in honor of Chidala Lakshmi Narasimha. Okay, first of all, I would like to congratulate all of you for taking time coming here and spending it this 2 days as one of the important events in the history of VIT School of Law. And we know that this particular event is only possible with the active support of you guys. I think all of you also come and sit here. You are constantly like a bees buzzing around. Come. All of you come here except 2. So in fact, when we envisioned this particular topic, we were thinking on what would be the appropriate title. And the title, when we are finalizing, we have deliberations on various aspects of the Constitution. And you know that only first year we are making you to sit here and listen. And I feel that you are privileged ones in the entire law school because the 4 batches, they're denied of this opportunity listening from the experts of the subject due to their examination. And we never had this kind of deliberations in the past 4 years or 5 years in the short history of VSL. And it is only you have the luxury of listening from the people of various cross-sectoral expertise like social science and law and also from the judiciary. And I really appreciate all the experts coming here and sharing the decks. And in fact, if I wrap up this session, taking a little feedback from what we have listened, and each presentation and each lecture is very thought-provoking. And I told you that we are going to take the quiz, not today, but when I come to your class in the next week or maybe towards later in this week. But let me wrap up with a few things. And yesterday I wrapped up in the session after what we have discussed. And today we have the 3 impressive speakers. And Dr. Ajay started with why do constitutions fail. He has given the wide canvas and raised a lot of questions. And he left you with so much of the thinking. I don't know how many of you can really connect to that particular questions, but that is very thought-provoking, and it's going to provide a foundations to all of you in the days to come, because he has expertise of teaching in NUJS Calcutta and NLS Bangalore to lawyers. And the political science foundation is very important, and he knew that how we can give that kind of foundation to the law students where they really emerge as one of the lawyers who are grounded in the ideology of the constitution and the societal problems. And I must appreciate him for giving the questions to all of you. And I'm sure you are going to ponder on that question. One particular question which really impresses me is that is about populism. He mentioned very passively about that today, one of the problems of the Indian constitution is the rising and growing populistic tendencies across the world are contesting the relevance of the constitutions. Particularly in India, the rising religious populism and right-wing populism, which really putting a challenge to the ideologies of the Indian constitutions and Indian constitutional values. And the days to come, we are going to discuss that in our regular courses. When we teach either constitutions or law and economics and other, we touch upon that one. And the second lecture, if you look at that, Dr. Rinku, she has given very subtle way of asking you to read Dr. B.R. Ambedkar very seriously. And you have the course outline. Your English teacher will touch upon that. That is the writings of the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. If you take an Ambedkar readings seriously, definitely you are going to come up. And I'm going to ask your teacher to give the questions from what Rinku is taught you to read today, particularly the Ambedkar writings, that is Annihilation of the Caste. It's a very small, 28 pages, nice write-up, but a lot of questions and a lot of challenges. Being a law student, we should, and I must acknowledge Rinku for that and bringing here and giving you the homework for days to come. And I am sure when we start our regular lectures, I'm going to ask you to review that. All of you have to review. Now coming back to that, the last speaker we have today, that is Dr. S.R.T.P. Raju. He has given that the wide and again spectrum of constitutional values, tracing from the history and including the various political ideologies of liberal democracy, social democracy, authoritarianism, and other sectoral political ideologies. And he also touched upon where do we find the constitutional values. And he concluded by addressing particularly the issues relating to the feminism and feminist ideologies. And we do offer the courses on feminist theories and approaches of law, including international law. And here, if I wrap up these of the things today, for Indian constitution, I must tell you that we are in the age of authoritarian populism, and it bears the mark of a personalistic and charismatic leaders who manipulates the fear and the needs and the desire of the population, often promising a simple and mistaken solutions for the complex problems. We have the complex problems. What is the complex problems? One Ajay has mentioned. That is, if you want to be healthy, what you should do? One, you get up at 5 o'clock and do yoga. Instead of 10 Sugunakaras, maybe you should do 108. Simple solutions they give with the crucial problems. And what is the crucial problem? The problem is unemployment. The problem is of inequality. The problem of undermining the constitutional values, undermining the judicial institutions and constitutional institutions to divert your opinions. They give these kind of simplistic solutions. And it started during the COVID. And I know all of you are very young in the COVID. I'm sure 90% of you has done that idiotic exercise also, that he started saying that you take your a plate and start beating so that corona can go. All of you must have done it, isn't it? If you have not done it, that means you are not following. This kind of nonsense, this kind of simplistic solutions, people divert today by showing their charismatic and whatever the personality trait. They create the cult of personality. And there is also debates which I don't know how many of you are following. He speaks that he is a chowkidar and he is never sleep, and you can sleep peacefully. And this is referred to the so many attacks which are happening inside of India through various extremist means. You know what I mean to say that. So this is the kind of cult which undermines subtle way, bringing the religious populistic sentiments and undermining the constitution. Today, you are in the midst of this kind of problem. I leave it to you with this particular few questions. Now, the question is that, are you really choose to ponder upon these questions, or are you really put down your head and like zombies keep scrolling the screens, both in classrooms and outsides? That's your choice. If you really want to become the zombies, not reacting to that, and you will end up like a minions. But the VIT School of Law, we determined to create a critical lawyers, those who are grounded with greater outlook, what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has shown to all of us. With these few remarks, now I conclude that today and yesterday we had very enriching sessions, and all of you should think about the path which I have shown all the experts, those who have come here. So once again, I thank all the resource people and organizers, our colleagues, Dr. Deepanjan, Dr. Suresh, and Dr. Hariyanantu, and other faculty colleagues, those who have been bringing, putting their efforts, channelizing their energies, to having a nice, a coherent program, and also putting all the experts in a proper, meaningful manner, so that we can have a rhythm. You can understand what we are really facing, and most of you may not have realized it right now. Maybe later you will. Okay, and also I thank our close friend C.H. Venkatraman, and who is the senior advocate of Hyderabad High Court, and here in Andhra Pradesh High Court, my classmate and friend, and who is always in the support for us, and is the practicing advocate and founded that Ishwar law firm. In his father's name today, we had the first endowment lecture. I thank him for his generosity and sparing the time to have him come here, and thank you very much, Raman, for your wonderful lecture. And I thank our colleague, Dr. Priyanka, for giving a great support and rendering from the day one, and this particular program has started, and we started working on that, how we should take this particular thing. And we are a little skeptical because we are leaving a majority of the crowd, those who are writing the exam. But I said that, let us have something, a dialogue has to start even when a few students are there. If we can instill some ideas to them, that is a great success. With this, we started this in a particular exercise, and I feel that we are still taking this debate little further. May we continue to have this particular debates and discussion in the days to come. With this, I thank you all of you for your patient hearing and sitting here and trying to balance between your minions jobs as well as trying to look at for the correct practices of giving attendance. We also do that correct practice. If you come here, we'll give you the attendance. It's a bribing. It's a kind of win to win. If I don't say that you are not going to be attending classes or attendance is not there, I'm sure none of you are here. So, but somehow we have to do that. Sometimes it's required. A paternalistic and authoritarianism, which where the cultural relativism of human rights do talk about it. That's very unique to the Asian cultures, isn't it? Authoritarian paternalism. European system it doesn't work, but in the Asian system it does. So sometimes it may require. I take now I'll stop it here. Thank you very much, all of you, and thank all the resource people and our friend H.V. Raman as well. Thank you once again.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just Dr. Chaka said that I have to say a few words and few sentences. I don't have much to, deliver here today, but already Sir has, summarized the 2 days program and the talk and the takeaway message from it. For me, I just came and I was happy to listen to today's, the last speaker's talk, Dr. Raju. And the takeaway message for me is that a difference between, liberal kind of feminism and radical feminism. And I think there are many other streams of feminism which came. I mean, there are not just two, divisions are there. There are other forms of it. And other thing I would say that I hope you have enjoyed the 2 days, lectures from the day one and today, yesterday and today. And I hope you have learned something from these 2 days, different sessions, technical sessions, inaugural session and technical sessions. I think some of you are very new, the first year students. So you might not be able to grasp every concept which was discussed here, but I think this is a good start, and you can actually read about those concepts which have been discussed, which actually emerged in these 2 days lectures. I hope you review that. Some of the maybe you have taken notes, some of the key points, terms, and you can go back and review that by yourself. I think that will be a good task. And as I mentioned that you will have a book review, and I would also suggest please do read that book. It's a wonderful book and it's very thin. You can finish it in 1 day if you just sit with it. So with that, I would like to thank Dr. Banerjee Chakra for organizing this along with our School of Social Sciences and Humanities. And I also thank our co-conveners, Dr. Dipanjan, Dr. Suresh Karimella, and Dr. Anantu from VIT School of Law for their hard work. And within very short time it was organized. It was very fast actually we organized it. So I really thank all the faculty, administrative staff who have contributed to this event. Thank you.